And he just released a documentary on Arte which looks into literature as resistance against dictators in the Philippines. So I know that no one has time at the book fair and everyone is nervous about all the events you're missing right now, so let me go straight into it. Patricia, in your book, you documented the war against drugs of your former president, Rodrigo Duterte, who maybe killed up to 30,000 people, according to civil society organizations. Duterte, however, was not unknown. He already was a mayor in the south of the Philippines. And he was very outspoken about his plans on what he was willing to do. And you covered his campaigning. And before the day of the election, you published a warning. And I want to quote from that. We write this as a warning. The streets will run red if Rodrigo Duterte keeps his promise. Take him at his word and know you could be next. How could this guy get elected as president?
For the same reason Donald Trump get elected. For the same reason Netanyahu can get elected. Charismatic men all over the world who know how to tell a story can win hearts and minds. Rodrigo Duterte told the promise. He took every fear and every grievance fueled by decades of failed expectations in the Philippines. And then he gave the enemy a name. He called it the scourge of illegal drugs. And he said he would kill to destroy it. He said the fish would feed fat on the corpses of criminals. He said morticians would grow rich with a deluge of death. He also said that if you don't believe him, he will give you the drugs himself. Feed it to your children and watch them become monsters. So it's the autocrat's playbook. It is easy to dominate. It is easy to kill an entire class of people if you make them less than people. And that's what he did. Drug dealers, drug addicts, they were monsters. They were madmen. They did not deserve the rights of a Filipino because they were not human.
Thank you. Then help us to please understand, what was the war on drugs? What happened there?
The Philippines has less than half the global average when it comes to drug use. But that didn't matter to Rodrigo Duterte. He didn't believe in rehabilitation. He didn't believe in restitution. He believed in retribution. He made a promise to the people that he would save them, and if the enemy was drugs, then he would destroy it. So the drug war happened between 2016 and 2022, or as we call it, the so-called drug war, 2016 to 2022, where allegedly 30,000 people were killed. I say allegedly because we are uncertain of the numbers. What we are sure of is this: at least 6,200 were killed by the police in what the government called legitimate police operations. It means that a drug suspect who is maybe part of a watch list, who is maybe someone whose name was written on a piece of paper and dropped into a box of anonymous targets, will be found, his body sprawled on the ground, a gun beside his hand, and the police will say, well, we didn't have a choice, he resisted. In the narrative of the police, more than 6,000 resisted that they were forced to kill. But the other people, they were killed, if you look at police reports, by unnamed hitmen or by vigilantes. And very often, they would be left at street corners, on top of highways, with their hands bound, their heads wrapped in packing tape, with a sign beside them. It would say, drug dealer, do not imitate. Because that is the operative principle of the drug war. Not only do you kill, but you have to instill fear. And everyone was afraid.
Thank you, Carson. You also covered the war on drugs in the Philippines. What was the role of journalists during that time and the year? Please help us understand the differences between journalists domestically in the Philippines, but also the role of the international press there.
Well, first of all, I would say it's like the reason why Duterte is now at the ICC is partly because of the Filipino journalists really stood the ground. One of them is there were many others who, despite the fear, despite the oppression, despite the shitstorms, despite the anger which was pushed towards them, they stood their ground, they reported, they got the facts out, and this is now public record, and this is why Duterte did not get away with it. So this is, for a big part, is due to the Filipino journalists. So the international journalists, for, I think this was a good story for about a year. That's when the killing started. That's when a lot of journalists like Pat and I were every day out on the street. We went to the crime scenes. We saw the people lying in the blood. We followed police operations. We went on raids. We spoke to killers, and it was a very journalistically, it was a very fascinating story because you got all the access. You were able to go with the police. You were able to talk to assassins who were telling you how they kill. I personally did an interview with an assassin, a woman, and she had to cut the interview short because her boss called her and she had to leave to kill a person. So the international interest after a year died down. So the drug war continued, people kept dying, and the international journalists didn't come anymore. So for me, as the only German journalist in the Philippines, I had no other choice but to keep reporting, because this is my home. I've been living there for 18 years. It becomes quite personal when you leave your house and a few hundred meters away from your house there's a person being killed. Or you take your son to school and you say, oh, there, I saw a dead person there, I saw a dead person there. It's like everywhere you went, you remembered the crime scenes where people would be killed. So there was, I think, any journalist in the Philippines at that time, we didn't have a choice. We had to report. We had to show what was happening, despite the little interest which was in the international media. It was very difficult to push the stories into the German media, and it was very difficult for the local journalists because they really took the heat. Me working for Arte or Der Spiegel or Geo, no hitman, no politician in the Philippines watches Arte, or German language channel. So I was pretty safe. The Filipino journalists, not so much. In the beginning, we did not know if a journalist would be killed. The first year, every time a motorcycle stopped next to us, we were putting our head down because we didn't know if we get bullet in the back of the head. After a couple of years, probably we realized it's like there's a lot of talk, but we probably won't get killed, right?
I think if you're living in that universe long enough, it's the imagine that's difficult. A gunshot is a gunshot, but imagining that is difficult because every one of your actions is informed by possibilities. I was always afraid that I would get a phone call, someone's mother who would say that my son is dead and it's because of the story, or a source would be discovered because I missed a sentence that would have protected me. So it loops in your head all the time. Are you doing it right? Are you going to get sued tomorrow? Is someone going to die because you screwed up? So it was difficult, but I wasn't alone. Carson and I were part of a large group of journalists that I call the night shift. Reporters, foreign correspondents, locals, a lot of people which is I think how we survived, because it means that I stand over a body tonight and someone lights my cigarette for me. And tomorrow I'm standing over another body and I know the same guy will be next to me. There's a comfort in knowing that you belong to a tribe.
Carson, you know the Philippines. You're also German and know Germany. Why would a German audience care about what happened a couple of years ago in the Philippines? Isn't that so far away that it's just another bad news that we have to deal with?
I'm so glad you're the one forced to answer this question.
I hope I can, because I think for the same reason that Pat's book is so relevant, we can learn from the Philippines, because what happened in the Philippines, not only the drug war, how populism rose and how the Duterte in his 25 years of power as a mayor and as a president. He had a blueprint in Davao, and the blueprint was he did it in a city and then he did it for a country. And he used the language. When I moved to the Philippines in 2008, I would not have thought it imaginable that a country which is so hospitable, so friendly, so life-loving can accept 30,000 people being killed just like that. So we can learn from the Philippines, not only with the drug war, not only with the rise of populism, it's also the way social media works, the disinformation, how you can manipulate people. There is a lot to learn from the Philippines because the Philippines is a petri dish for all the evil games played these days. We had that 10 years ago. It's now coming to the US, it's now coming to Europe, and also people like Pat and Maria Ressa and other journalists in the country. We also learned how to react. We also know how to play the game now. So it's like there is ask the questions, and it's like we learn from the Philippines how to address these issues now.
I have a question for the both of you. What do you think sticked from the war on drugs? Did it change the DNA of the Filipinos?
Before the drug war, it wasn't like violence wasn't endemic. There was violence everywhere. Kirsten and I have been together in many conflicts and in quite a lot of things. The difference was that when we were covering terrible things before the war, people agreed they were terrible. People shouldn't be slaughtered in the street. There shouldn't be a massacre of 32 journalists. After Rodrigo Duterte was elected, the terrible became ordinary, and my people applauded. That was a difficulty. And I think moving forward, it's going to take generations to deal with that trauma to the country. It's going to be the children of killers. It's going to be the children of people who were killed. It's going to be the children who saw it on television or walked down the street and saw a dead body and thought this is an ordinary way to deal with anything. And I think that's what's going to stay.
But there's another DNA with the Philippines because it's also the resistance DNA. The Philippines, and I just made a film about that, how literature can stand in the face of oppression and dictatorship. And so from the time of Jose Rizal, the national hero, there was always someone, it's a minority, but there were always people, whether it was Jose Rizal, Jose Dalisay, Maria Ressa, you and other journalists stood up to people in power and spoke truth to power. So this is also part of the Philippines, which I think you can learn a lot. Don't look at the Philippines as victims. Look at the people who overcame a horrible dictatorship, a horrible autocrat, a horrible drug war. And the way you addressed it is like the way you can don't see the Philippines as victims. Look at people who resisted in the face of oppression.
I wouldn't use large names to demonstrate the people's ability to stand up. Throughout the drug war, we survived because of ordinary people. People who said, they killed my brother, use my name, tell my story, tell my brother's story. It's the courage of people who talked to us, who took their life in their hands and said, use my face, use my name. My son is dead. This is the least I can do. The reason there are developments in the pursuit of justice is because there were priests who offered sanctuary. There were lawyers who gave their services for free. Many lawyers died. Many mayors died. Many people died, activists. And I think I wouldn't reduce it to people who already have privilege. I would say it is far more honorable to look at the people who did not have privilege and say, I'm going to stand up.
I have one more question to Patricia, and after that, I'm going to open the floor, and I think we have easily time for 2-3 questions from the audience. So please think about what you would like to ask after Pat answered my very last question. Patricia, there was a lot of talk about a potential boycott of the Philippine delegation here at Frankfurt. You're opposite here. Can you fill us in on what that was about? Why are you not here? Why are you here and not back in the Philippines?
Thank you. The Philippines was trying to organize a boycott of the entire Frankfurt Book Fair, and it would have been important because we are the guest of honor. I think it's a reasonable ask. I thought about it long and hard whether or not I would come. The reason there was a call for boycott, for many reasons, chiefly it is because of Germany's stand on Palestine. It is also because the book fair itself has not taken a strong stance against the slaughter of civilians, journalists, people in Gaza. And I think when the book fair does say that it champions the freedom to publish and the freedom to speak, then it's in its purview to say we condemn absolutely the slaughter of people who are telling the story there. Because that journalists don't tell stories. The worst threat to press freedom is not a libel case, it's when you can't speak anymore. I thought about it, whether to boycott. I think I respect the people who did. But I thought I am small enough that when I don't show up, nobody would care. But if I showed up sitting on stages like this, I could say that resistance is important and that we need to honor both the people who lost and understand that this is a complex issue. But there are no sides. There is only one side to press freedom. I think it was the right call for me, not necessarily for everyone else, but yeah.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you here to speak that out. And as I promised, this is now the time for you to come in and ask your questions away. Please give me a sign with your